Hello everyone, Venus Brown here with another Digging Deeper segment on neurodiversity. This particular post is on acquired and shifting neurodiversity. While a lot of neurodivergence can occur at birth, during delivery, or even before birth, neurodivergence are actually acquired. As the name implies, this neurodivergence is acquired later in life. Other things that can occur later in life for a neurodivergent person are shifts and changes in neurodivergence. Today's Digging Deeper post, we will take a closer look into acquired neurodiversities and neurodivergent shifts and changes. This topic is close to me because I acquired some of my own neurodivergence after sustaining a frontal head injury called a TBI, or traumatic brain injury, from a severe auto accident. While some of the symptoms and side effects from that head injury have healed, some continued on, and some have actually evolved, which is normal even after a severe head injury. In a Cleveland Clinic article, they address how some conditions arise and address possible treatments. For example, some neurodivergence can occur from illness or injuries, cause damage or deterioration to the brain or other parts of the neural network. Other conditions can also change or alter the way the brain works. Still, some can occur from mental health conditions and mental unwellness. While addressing specific signs and symptoms of neurodivergence may be warranted, it is wise to focus on the underlying conditions causing them. By addressing the underlying issues, it can often reduce the impact of certain challenges. The article also explains how some underlying conditions, from brain damage or degenerative conditions, can actually improve on their own. However, some conditions may be helped with treatment and supportive care, and still others may be untreatable. Much like many of the conditions that are on a broad spectrum, the kinds of treatment, support, accommodations, accessibility, tools, and coping skills for acquired neurodivergence can vary widely. Along with supportive care, some treatments involve medication, various types of therapy, as well as learning to live with and accommodate neurodivergence. Since I'm going to address trauma and changes in neurodivergence, I think it's a good time to start talking about parts of the brain and their various functions. An article in Headway provides this diagram of the brain, showing how various parts control our functions. In the top back section, we have the parietal lobe, which controls things like perception, spatial awareness, manipulation of objects, and spelling. Back bottom, called the occipital lobe, controls our vision. This lower, more central area is called the temporal lobe. It controls memory, recognizing faces, generating emotions, and language. And that tiny little area between them, it's called Wernicke's area, and controls our understanding of language. This frontal area is called the frontal lobe. It controls high-functioning skills, called executive functions or administrative functions. These are things like planning, organizing, emotional and behavioral control, personality, problem-solving, attention, social skills, conscious movement, and flexible thinking. This area of the frontal lobe and the temporal lobe were the main areas of my brain that were affected in the accident, which initially caused me a lot of problems with short-term memory, executive functioning skills, and behavioral issues. I had a raw sense of humor, and I also had a lot of difficulty controlling my inhibitions. Now, the article tells us that due to the large size and frontal location of the frontal lobe, this makes it quite vulnerable to injury. The brain can be knocked around into the bony ridges above the eyes, even with a blow to the back of the head. Not to mention, the frontal lobe can also be affected by other closely connected parts of the brain. Strokes, infections, tumors, and TBIs can damage or affect various parts of the brain or neurological system. One article by Antonio asked 2 questions about neurodivergence. Can trauma cause neurodivergence? And can neurodivergence cause trauma? In explaining how trauma can cause neurodivergence, he states, quote, "If we consider neurodivergence is characterized by differences in brain structure resulting in changes in behavior, emotional processing, cognitive processing, sensory processing, and other factors having to do with how we use our nervous systems, and that trauma causes similar changes in the brain in attempt to adapt to the traumatic event. Plus, we also see that there tends to be a lot of correlation and overlap between neurodivergence and trauma. It doesn't necessarily mean that one causes another, but sometimes it can. Studies of brain MRIs have even shown how those who have been through trauma are are actually structurally different from those that haven't. These traumatic brain experiences shape how the brain responds by changing its response system. Now, what about the connection of neurodivergence to increased traumas? Like many other stigmatized groups, neurodiverse individuals experience trauma at much higher rates than typical individuals. It often happens because of increased likeliness of stigmatization, due to differences from what society feels are ideal or normal. Not feeling accepted can lead to trauma responses like stress, anxiety, depression, unhealthy ways of coping, etc. As the author states, quote, very well could be contributing to neurodivergent folks' trauma responses without even knowing it. Consider the fact that treatments which try to fix or mask neurodivergent characteristics actually contribute to the continued stigmatization of those behaviors, along with the continued normalization of neurotypical behaviors. Whereas support through affirming therapies may be beneficial at reducing some of that stigma and trauma. So again, neurodiversity may not be the cause of trauma, but it is related and can be connected in some cases. Dr. Kristen Wilson addresses the overlap of neurodivergent presentations with further injury from TBIs. These overlapping presentations can contribute to increased symptoms and longer recovery times. What does this mean for a person who's already neurodivergent? With these increased rates of brain injury, a neurodivergent person who experiences a brain injury may have increased mood disturbances, sleep disruption, dietary struggles, processing and behavioral changes, learning struggles, or seizures. Not all of these, of course, but some can increase or arise. Many will ease with time and treatment. Vanessa Kemna also discusses things that can trigger further challenges and changes, like addiction, poor diet, lack of sleep, increased anxiety and mental health challenges, infections, chronic conditions, pregnancy, further injuries and trauma. Challenging environments can all trigger shifts and changes in neurodivergent people. There are some things to keep in mind, both for changes in neurodivergent individuals, as well as those who have acquired recent neurodivergence. Those who are newly experiencing neurodivergence may be thrown off, scared, confused, upset, frustrated, or angry. I can attest to this, having experienced it myself. This is new for them. They may not feel like themselves, or they may want to just get back to normal. An already neurodivergent person may experience many of these same feelings themselves. As written in that article by Headway, many of these challenges are not visible. Others may not understand or recognize what is happening, may not realize the extent of the challenges. Those closest to the person may go through their own set of challenges. Processing these changes can be trying for all those involved. Loved ones may become upset, embarrassed, or frustrated, not knowing how to respond, or disagreeing with their loved one's responses, actions, or lack of action. A neurodivergent person may not even realize these changes or recognize what's happening. Those in positions of caretaking may be having distressing circumstances themselves. With increased responsibilities, high stress, strain on relationships, limits on communication, exhaustion, and frustration, may need to access support services and increase support networks for themselves and for those they care for as well. It's important to remember, as mentioned by Goley, neurodiversity is not a disease or disorder, but a unique way of thinking and perceiving the world. People with acquired, changing, ongoing neurodivergent conditions to be treated respectfully and with understanding. They have the right to live full lives with the same opportunities as others. That means accommodations and supports need to be provided in society. All can access complete, fulfilling lives, autonomy, and opportunities the same as everybody else. Also remember to look for the silver lining. Ishikasan reminds us that even after a brain injury, much of our loved one's individuality remains. They are still the same person. Plus, even with changed neurodivergence, there can be different intelligences that sometimes emerge: visual reasoning, emotional intelligence, creativity, or a new way of communicating or seeing things. We should appreciate and embrace our differences, while also making those differences less challenging for those experiencing them. Remember, all going through a lot. We could all use a little more humanity and a little more understanding. That's all I got for you this week. Hope to see you next week when we continue our neurodivergent discussions. I know it's been a lot. I only have 2 more left, and I hope you will join us. If you haven't done it already, you can click subscribe. If you click that little bell and click all, then you would get notifications every time new content comes out. See you next time. Bye.